In the previous video I talked about different types of interview and about making the decision how structured your interviews should be. And in this video I'll share some practical tips for how to develop an interview guide. The literature on conducting interviews and developing interview guides outlines certain types of questions to ask as well as types of questions to avoid. So types of questions to ask include follow-up questions, where you just follow up the main question and ask your participants to develop their thoughts further, or introductory questions where you just encourage your participants to speak. So for example, you say, can you now please tell me about your experience? Or interpretive questions where you just double check the meaning and you ask, for example, correct me if I'm wrong, but what you seem to believe is this or that. The questions to avoid include double-barreled questions where you ask more than one question within one question, or biased questions and leading questions that kind of suggest to your participant what kind of answer they should give or what kind of answer you're expecting. So for example, if you ask, you don't think Arnold Schwarzenegger is a good actor, do you? This suggests that you, the researcher, don't think he's a good actor. So your participant may feel like he or she should give you this response. So this is a biased question and you should definitely try to avoid asking these types of questions. I outline all these questions to ask and questions to avoid in my blog article, which I'll put the link to under this video. But in this video I really wanted, rather than talking about these typologies and classifications as they appear in the literature, I really wanted to give you some actual practical steps for how to go about developing an interview guide. So the point I'm trying to make, and I've made this point a couple of times before in relation to other aspects of qualitative research, is that although it's useful to know these different typologies, it may give you certain ideas for what questions to ask and how to ask them. I would definitely not recommend over-relying on these typologies. So when you're developing an interview guide, you shouldn't be thinking about what kind of questions, like introductory questions, like I said, or probing questions to include, but rather what kind of answers you're looking for. So strictly thinking about your own research questions and trying to do everything you can to get these responses from your participants. So the first thing that I like to do when I develop my interview guide is to look at my research questions. I have my research questions, let's say I have 3 questions. I open a new Word document and I simply put these 3 questions there, and this is my initial structure. So I know in this interview that ultimately my goal is to answer these questions. And then from there, as I have this, as I said, general structure, I try to, under each research question that I have, I try to develop some ideas, write down some ideas for how I can possibly get that information from my participants. So this is where I feel that we should get really creative. So you're starting with your research questions and then you're well, kind of brainstorming on your own all the possible kinds of questions from all the possible angles that may give you some indication or that may give you some insights into your participants' beliefs or attitudes or whatever it is that you're investigating. Like I said, you really have to be creative. So you need to bear in mind that your participants, sometimes when you ask them, they will simply, if you ask them a direct question that is the reflection of your research question, they may sometimes not give you the answer you need. Not because they are not honest, although this could be the case as well, but simply because they, for example, haven't thought about it before, they haven't really reflected on the experience or the belief or attitude that you're asking them about. So for example, if you're asking them about a given experience in the past and how it influenced their further life or further experiences. So let's imagine you're talking about being fired from work. So if you ask them directly, how did being fired from work influence your further life, or influence your further career, they may simply not give you the answer. They may say that they don't know. And this may be, again, as I said, not because they don't want to give you the answer, that maybe they simply haven't had a time to reflect on how it actually influenced their further career or their further life. So by being creative, what I mean here is there are so many things you could ask instead or in addition to that question. So you could ask, for example, what do you think would have been different in your career or in your life if you hadn't been fired? So this is, as you can see, it's actually asking about the same thing. So you're asking about the possible influence of that event on their further career, but this time you're approaching it from a slightly different angle. So you're making them think, you're making them reflect. What would have been different if it hadn't happened? Now let's think about another example. So you're investigating students' beliefs about group work. You want to know what they think about group work, so what the advantages are, what disadvantages are, and perhaps how to improve group work. You also want to know some opinions on the real experiences and what they think about the way their teachers implemented group work in their experience. Again, asking them directly, how would you improve group work? How would you improve what your teacher did in terms of group work? It may not necessarily produce detailed answers for a number of reasons. For example, imagine that a student may think, who am I to suggest improvements to my teacher's practice? But then you can, if you approach it from a different angle and you ask, for example, imagine you are a teacher. How would you how would you implement group work in your class? Or what would be the perfect class that involves group work activities if you were the teacher? Again, it's the same question about improvements and how would you improve group work, but it's approaching the topic from a different angle. So I think we all like to be creative, and by nature we like creativity. So you're asking them to imagine a perfect class. It's like an assignment for children where they have to draw a perfect house, you know, or a dream house. So here, asking them about a perfect class really makes them stop and think and reflect on the practices. And also importantly, when they talk about different class, the perfect class that you're asking them, they may give you some valuable answers in terms of their general opinions of group work. So they may remember some event or some aspect of group work that they didn't like when they were involved in group work in their experience. So it's not just giving you this one response about their ideal group work or their suggestions for improvement, but actually there is a chance that you will elicit much more than that. So you'll elicit their opinion on some strengths and some advantages of group work, as well as some possible challenges, and maybe they will remember some challenges that happened in the past. So something they faced, something they didn't like about group work in the past in their own experience. Again, they may not be willing to criticize their teachers openly, or they may simply not remember. And here again, you're making them reflect on these experiences, and you're making them remember things better. This kind of creativity can be applied to any kind of context and any kinds of research questions. So it's important, like I said, to sit down and kind of brainstorm ideas. Think about all possible ways to approach the question. And remember, as I said, importantly, these questions don't always have to directly ask about what you want to find out, but if they give you this little bit of extra insight, if they enable your participants to reflect on the experience and just give you a little bit of that information, then it means that the question served its purpose. So as I have this general structure based on my interview questions, then I have a whole big number of questions under each of these questions. I kind of try to organize them logically. So just because I started with organizing my interview guide in relation to my research questions doesn't mean that this is what the final product will look like, because the most important thing for the interview is for it to feel really natural. So if you have these questions only for the purpose of answering the research questions, there is a chance that the interview will not feel natural at all. So it's important to give some kind of a natural flow of the conversation. Also, you should bear in mind things like controversial opinions or some traumatic experiences. If you're asking about this type of experiences, usually it's best to include them towards the end, when the interviewees got used to the whole interview setting, to the camera or audio recording devices. They feel more at ease talking to you, and they had also had this opportunity, as I said, to reflect and to think about their experiences. So all these complex questions, usually I try to wait with asking these questions towards the end of the interview. Also, the chronological order of events, if it's possible, it's not always possible, but it's good to start with the events that happened, took place longer time ago, and then develop towards the more recent events. Again, this is just a natural way of thinking about things, and if this is reflected in the interview guide, it just kind of feels more natural. The whole conversation feels more natural than this very structured and artificial interview. Once I have this general flow of the conversation planned, once I have this general structure with my questions I really want to ask, I make a note of all the possible follow-up and probing questions that may appear after my main questions. So if I cannot predict what they will tell me, but I can have some idea of what I may ask if they don't tell me what I want them to reflect on. So simple questions such as, can you develop this, or why do you think that happened, or what happened next, and this kind of thing. These are small questions that will really help you, because during the interview, as you will be trying to be really responsive to the whole interview situation, to what your participants are telling you, you may simply forget. So it's very important to make a note even of these little questions that will follow after the main questions. I will talk in much more detail about how to actually act during the interview, how to establish this atmosphere of trust, how to ask questions, how to react to what the participants are saying in the next video. Here, finally, as you have this interview guide in front of you, don't forget to add very important things such as introduction and closure to the interview. Again, this seems obvious, but quite often, as we're concerned about the whole interview and how we're going to ask questions and what to ask, we may forget about these simple things. So in the initial stage of the interview, you should thank your participants for participating, perhaps explain a little bit more the purpose of the interview, also explain the whole situation and how this will feel a little bit artificial. Again, I will talk much more about this in the next video, but it's important to introduce this whole situation to the participants to make sure that they know what to expect in this interview. And in this final closure, again, it's just important to ask whether there's anything else they would like to ask or add, and then thank your participants for participating. So this is all about developing an interview guide. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments here under the video on YouTube. And if there's anything I forgot to add, I would love to add it in the comments and clarify it in the comments. So feel free to ask whatever you want to ask in the comments. And in the next video, as I said, I will talk about the actual interview process. And in the video after that, I will talk about what to do with the interview data. If you like this content, consider subscribing so that you don't miss the next videos.